All right, let's make some cookies. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this Python program. It's a Flask application. You can find the starter code in a GitHub repo. The link is in the textbook page. But for now, we're just going to get this thing running. So Python main.py starts the Flask server. I click on the little magic link here, open up a page, and this is all it is. I can hit refresh. The number changes. It's just a couple of headings and a random number. So this is pretty much what we've been used to from the last couple of chapters. We use render template to render a particular, in this case, index.html file. We pass in some data that is created here when we generate the random number. And again, that's all it does. Our next step then is to figure out how to set a cookie with this web page. But before we do that, let me go ahead and return to the browser and show you how to open up some tools so that we can actually view a cookie. So I'm using Firefox. If you're using Chrome or Edge or Safari or something else, the commands and the steps might be a little bit different, but the logic is pretty much the same. So I can go to Tools and look at my web developer tools, and I would open up Storage Inspector. Alternatively, and this works for most browsers, if you just right-click on the page and select Inspect Element, there will be a tab called Storage that you can click. And this will display any cookies that have been set or saved for that particular site. Now, if I just refresh this panel right here, nothing appears. If I refresh the page to get some different numbers and refresh here, again, nothing appears because our Python code doesn't actually set any cookies. So let's fix that. Now, to set a cookie, I'm going to have to bring in some extra functionality from the Flask library. In particular, this is called make response, make_response. And so with this is going to allow us to, like I say, set those cookies. And so to get started down here, I'm going to make a little bit of a change here. First, I'm going to get rid of this render template line. I'm not going to throw it away completely because I'm going to need it again in a few minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and paste it into a comment here. But what we'll do is I'm going to define a new variable called HTTP response. And it doesn't matter what you call this variable. I mean, you could call it, rutabaga for all we care, as long as you keep an eye on what it's doing. And what this variable is going to do is we're going to assign it the response from the server. And what that means is that anytime a browser requests some data from the server, that HTTP request is followed from the server by an HTTP response. And so the function make_response just builds that. So basically all this is going to do is this make_response is going to say, hey, create an HTTP response. We'll assign it to the variable HTTP response. And then eventually we're going to return that, which will be sent to the browser. So let's just start off with some simple text here. So I'll say hello world. I hit save. Now I reload the page and I've got this tiny text in there. So great. That's all make_response does. It behaves a lot like render template. And actually, if I want my hello world text to be a little bit bigger, I could always add in some h1 tags into this string. Hit save. Reload my page again, and there's my heading, hello world. And again, I said this behaves a lot like the render template. In fact, I can even take my render template function, and instead of sending in a hard-coded string with some HTML tags in it, I can actually replace that entire string, that argument, with my render template function. So again, this is going to render the index.html. It's going to pass in that random value, and then it will add that to this response that we're sending to the browser. So again, I'll hit save. I'll hit reload. And cool, we've pretty much returned to where we started. So again, that make response does a lot of what the render template does. It made my web page. And you might think, hey, why did we do kind of that extra work to wind up with exactly the same thing? And the reason is because, well, the make response function allows us to do extra things. Besides just rendering the template, it will allow us to set a cookie. So one of the functionality for that is that I'm going to take this HTTP response variable, which was assigned the value for make response, and I'm just going to say dot. So this will be a method, and the method for setting a cookie is, classic Python called setCookie. And then inside the parentheses here, I'm going to have to include two things. I'm going to have to include the cookie name. So let's call this favorite cookie. I suppose I should spell favorite right. So we get the cookie name, and then we're going to have to give it a value. So I don't know, how about oatmeal raisin? Now when I hit save and I reload my page here, okay, my number changes. But now if I go down to my cookie panel here and I hit refresh, now I see that, hey, we've got some cookie data here. I've got this cookie called that stores basically one key value pair, a name, favorite cookie, and a value, oatmeal raisin. And so I could easily go and change this value by choosing something other than oatmeal raisin. And actually, instead of hard coding this into my setCookie statement, let me just go ahead and define a variable. Let's call it cookie flavor. And let's give this, it's maybe something besides oatmeal raisin, chocolate chip. And then down here in my setCookie method, I can use that variable name, cookie flavor. So now I hit save. When I refresh the page and I refresh my cookie, there it is. Now it says chocolate chip instead of oatmeal raisin. So that's pretty good. We have just set a cookie. That's all there is to it in terms of making a cookie with Flask and Python. Now let me actually show how this actually is a bit different from say this number 47. Notice that nowhere in this code do I actually send the value cookie flavor to the template. So I mean up here where we render the template, we send it in that number to fill in that random value. But nowhere do I actually again send chocolate chip to display on the web page. It is folded into this HTTP response as a command. The browser is told, hey, create a new file. And in this new file, you will save essentially two things, the name, favorite cookie, and the value, chocolate chip. And since this is saved on our computer, this means that I can do something like I can actually stop this program. So I'll Control C to end my Flask program. If I hit refresh on the page, I get this little dinosaur or whatever it is that says, hey, I can't make a connection. But when I refresh this cookie pane, the cookie's still there. It doesn't go away when I refresh the page. It doesn't go away when I stop the program. So let me go ahead and restart my Flask application now. And then I'll do something else as well. Well, let me go ahead and refresh this. But now I'll open up a new tab and I'll hit paste. And so now notice that I've got a different value here. It's got 22 and this one is 37. And if I go ahead and right click, inspect element and go to storage, I'll see the exact same cookie. Okay, so that cookie persists in both places. Two tabs, it's the same cookie. Now I'm going to do another thing here. I changed the cookie flavor before. Let's change it to Thin Mints this time. But let me also change the name of the cookie. So instead of capital F favorite, let's do lowercase FAV for favorite with an underscore. So I'm essentially making a new cookie name here. I'll go ahead and save that. I'll refresh my page. I get a new random value. But when I refresh my cookie tabs, notice that I have two cookies now. That old cookie, favorite capital F cookie, chocolate chip, is still there. And then my new cookie name, faves underscore cookie, Thin Mints, that's there as well. Even more interesting is notice how I refresh the page in this tab, but this tab I haven't refreshed at all. It's still at the same number as it was before, but you'll notice that my cookies have updated. I have the same cookies displayed here that I have here. And that's because these cookie values, again, aren't sent to the template. They are sent to the browser. The browser saves them in a separate file, usually in the same directory as the browser software, and then it has access to that. So any tab that I open at 127.0.0.1 5000, that will have these cookies displayed as well. And so that's all there is to setting a cookie. You just need, like I say, one extra import and a couple of extra statements in your code, and now I could copy and paste this set cookie method, I could do this multiple times and set multiple cookies for the same web page. And the steps we'll take after this are to look at cookies, to access cookies, essentially how to get that information back out. All right, have some fun.